Cronk falls on it. That will be it. They've defended their title. They are still the champions and the first in a united competition since 92-93. Here's around for Farrell. He's over in his debut grand final. Wow, what a story for the kid. 10 minutes in the sin bin for the retiree. Here's Cooper, one to beat. It's gone inside of the Roosters. Tedesco. He goes in to score.
Well, Roosters fans, haven't we had a lot to put up with over the weekend? We've had rain, we've had sunshine, we've had COVID-19 interruptions. Our game's been moved to Monday afternoon a day later, but nothing could stop the juggernaut that is Trent Robinson's Roosters. The whistle blew, and within 5 minutes, sure enough, Crichton, Flanagan, then Tedesco, and say no more, it's 18-0. Last week, on this very program, Silky predicted a 40-point scoreline. Bells, same story. I got to tell you, what a great night to be a Rooster, and welcome to Roosters Radio. Silky, what an outstanding, polished performance. Our boys looked amazing last night. Sure, there was a little drop-off in the second half, and then we went straight back to it. What a night for Roosters Radio.
What a night indeed, Bush. Speaking of nights, what about tonight? We've got the one and only coach, Trent Robinson, joining us on Roosters Radio. And something a little bit different, Bush. We're going back to the fans, but this time an important fan, Arthur Zaneros. He's the CEO of ACFS Port Logistics, former jumper sponsor when we won the comp in 2013, and he's the sponsor, or player sponsor, of the one and only man of the moment, James Tedesco.
Yes, and a fellow Roosters tragic and a great guy to boot. Silky, let's get straight to it.
Well, James Tedesco. I've got some stats for you, Bush, if you don't mind me.
Of course.
3 tries, 2 try assists, 222 run metres and 8 tackle busts. Now, I'm not a Supercoach player, but I hear he's broke the record.
Well, there you go. He's not only broke the record, there's more laptops getting repaired today after his performance last night than anywhere in Apple stores. I can tell you, mate, it was the most polished performance. A highlight and a note for mine is not just that, but the way the whole squad galvanised and backed each other up. To a man, there were 5 Roosters and maybe 2 or 3 Bulldogs. Every time we appeared to make a break, every time someone scored, all you saw was Roosters jerseys.
Yeah, that was
impressive.
It was a dominant performance. Look, they said in the commentary it was 24-0, I believe, at half time, but it looked and felt more like 40. Just on Teddy's stats as well, Bush. He ran the ball 21 times. He had 2 line breaks, 5 line break assists, and 4 offloads. Those numbers are just astronomical. And I've run out of superlatives. It was just an unbelievable performance.
Yeah, and thank God he's a Rooster. I mean, the way, as I said, he stepped the ball on the player, caught it and run through.
What about that play?
The backup play, the way he just, as you said, threaded the needle as well with the bullet pass, and so did...
Flick onto Toops.
Yeah, so did Flano.
He did everything.
He did everything. And rightfully so, there's a lot of other great Roosters to mention. Let me say from the outset, Silky, I actually thought Canterbury made a good account of themselves. I thought they really bring it to the Roosters. I think they're a bit underdone with, some of their players. Thank God they had Kieran Foran at 5'8", but they just didn't appear a match for the Roosters.
We blew them off the park.
We did.
We blew them off the park. It looked like it was going to be a train wreck. Going into half time, you thought it could have been another repeat scoreline like it was against the Broncos. We came out of the second half a little bit tardy. I think we'll ask Trent Robinson about that on tonight's show, but I did watch his press conference and, there's a few errors that crept in early in that second half, but towards the back end of the second half, they clicked back into gear and they scored a few more tries, which was promising.
Yeah, it almost looked like in that second half when we were actually trying too hard, pushing the ball too much, and then we seemed to get back into what I consider to be our new Rooster gear, the gear that we play in. The up-tempo style of football, the way that they're hitting the line, the way that Jake Friend's carrying the ball out of dummy half, the quickness of the play, the ball. Lindsay Collins, he gets to his feet within milliseconds of being tackled. There's so much to like to be a Rooster. Last night, Jared Weir-Hargraves, one of our great leaders, our alpha male, is rested. But if you didn't know, you didn't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Morris twins, there's so much to like. Angus Crichton, absolute standout last night. Post-interview, he talks about Rooster style of footy. I want to touch on that with Coach Robinson, and it just made me really intrigued to be a Roosters fan and sit here and say, wow, we watch our boys go every week. We support them, rain, hail or shine. But what a polished performance. It must be a great time for them to be galvanised as a team.
What stood out for you the most, or what impressed you the most?
Just the tempo. I just couldn't believe how quick the rugby league, I've got friends of mine who said, mate, I'll go and watch AFL now. I'm done with league. It's too structured. He's a local truck driver, And, mate, he says to me, mate, I'm back in the game. The excitement of the rule changes, the way the Roosters are playing. He said, that's what footy's about. He goes, I want my young guy who's playing Bondi United, your club, to watch the Roosters game, and that's how he's got to play football. Pick a player and try to play like him. I love that. It's bringing the fans back. We can't go to the games, but it's bringing the excitement back. I sat there last night, no interruptions, watching that game like nothing else, and I've been doing it with other games over the weekend because of the style of footy.
Kyle Flanagan, for me, is really coming of age. It's a bit early to start throwing a lot of praise on him because this weekend will be a litmus test up against young Moses. But look, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I really am. He's not overplaying his hand. He's getting great support from Keary and Victor Radley, and he's just choosing the right time. That support play for that second try where BMOS has run up the sideline and the flick pass in, that's just support play. That play in itself. In the replay, there was 4 or 5 Roosters jumpers to the 1 Bulldogs. You were just talking about it early. It was as if we had more players on the park.
It did look like it. It looked like 20 on 13, you know. And I've got to be honest with you, the one thing that's impressed me about young Kyle Flanagan is his defence has gone to a new level. Like I suppose, you know, when you see a halfback, when I think of great halves defence, I think of Jeff Tuvey and Andrew Johns, probably the two of the best defenders in rugby league. Flanagan's not at that category, but he's only young, but his defence has been outstanding.
Over 100 points in 2 games. I think it's 120-something to 12 or 18. Your thoughts, what's impressed you from an attack and a defence?
The attack is just as slick as anything. They're turning the ball inside. Silky, we're not rugby league experts. We don't profess to be. We are absolute Roosters fans. We're of the fans, by the fans and for the fans. But from our experience, having a look at that side go to a new level, what's impressed me is everyone talks about they've gone back-to-back, can do a three-peat. I know that Robbo hates that sort of question and is not even interested in entertaining it. I'm with him. I don't think so. I just think we're just enjoying our footy. What's impressed me is every player out there looks like they're playing for each other. They've got a new lease of life. It looks like they're playing in the park with no money, no pressure and no worries. Yet they've got TV rights and all these different things. Newspapers come at them. They look like a schoolboy side.
Bush, I've got to say, I watched Matty Johns' commentary during the half-time break.
Yep.
And he talked about the footwork of the Roosters. He said a lot of these clubs talk about, structure and the like. If you look at some of our players, like in particular, Satili Tupouniua's run through the middle, the footwork that he showed, it was great that our sister station, the Matty Johns Show, commented on that because it really brought it to my attention. And if you concentrate on watching the tries that we've scored, particularly from the forwards, look at the footwork.
Not only that, Silky. I mean, you talk about one of our Roosters Radio favourites here, Boom Boom Boom.
Yeah, Siwa Takiya. He's another.
His footwork when he gets the ball.
Yeah. Isaac Lou's the same.
Isaac Lou's amazing. But I call it hot footing. They hot foot the opposition and they seem to get momentum and then it creates an overlap or it creates a man coming in. It's really, really amazing.
And then the firebrand who runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour, Lindsay Collins. I was loving how they just kept kicking off to that side of the field and he just kept hitting it up straight into Dylan Napper. The contact, like the beauty of not having a crowd there is you hear the contact and there was some really heavy collisions in those kickoff returns.
Yeah, well, Silky, there's lots to love about being a Rooster, but we're going to talk about all that and more about the great success of our team with none other than our coach, Trent Robinson. We've opened it up today to the fans. We've got some great questions. We've got questions from all over the world, which proves we got told Roosters Radio's going global, baby. We're there. We've got questions from The Hague, questions from Holland,
the UK,
local questions, the United Kingdom. They're coming in thick and fast, and we're going to ask Robbo all that and more right after this. Well, Roosters fans, we promised it and we deliver it. There's not many bigger names in our club right now than our leader, and we've had some great leaders of the past. Right now, Roosters fans, he's at the top of his game. He's been there for a while, and we promised we'd get him on for some serious questions. We've put it over the fans, Silky, and the fans have responded beautifully.
Yep.
Tonight, we want to welcome, for the first time in 2020, our fearless leader, our coach, the governor, Trent Robinson.
Welcome to Roosters Radio, Robbo.
Thanks, guys. How are we?
We're well, mate. We're well. We're, as you know, Silky and I, off the back of your hospitality and generosity in the World Club Challenge, you're probably that and COVID tipping the scales a bit more than we'd like to, but, geez, we're happy Roosters.
Yeah, good start. Good start back. I think we've had a fair few questions on us getting back into it. But boys enjoyed the break. They train well, and they love being back together. So I think that's the footy that we're seeing.
Yeah, and Robbo, in this interview we handed it to the fans and we asked the fans, to come up with some great questions, and they have, and we vetted them. And Benny DePolice has asked.
Well, it sounds like we've got a couple of little aspiring musicians in the background, Robbo.
I think the young ones have. They've got their harmonica out.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's just a nightly thing at the Robinson household.
I was hoping it was a piano accordion because I've seen many of them along the streets of Paris.
I was just going to say, with your French abilities and a piano accordion, you'd make a great club of gypsies.
Yeah, it's just, that's how Sandra keeps in touch with France each night.
Yeah, beautiful.
Perfect. Now, Robbo, the fans have asked the questions tonight, and we've handed the Roosters Radio show to the fans for our coach. And Benny DePolice has hit us off with a really, really interesting question, mate. We know you're an intellectual man, you're a learned man, and he said, COVID time, the impact, the scramble, is there a time in the club's history when you can reflect where there's a similarity with our culture, with the community, with what's happened with COVID? Could it be wartime? Could it be some of our darkest days? I mean, COVID brings some real struggles, and you seem to lead us through it well. Is there a time you can remember that compares?
Yeah, when it comes to the competition, obviously nothing would have compared to wartime in the First and Second World War there. I don't know, like even going back as far as the Spanish flu in 1919, I think whether they had to keep playing during that time as well, when it sort of took out about 1 million Australians, I think, as well. So, look, in the last 50 years, even in life, I don't think we've seen something that stopped the world, let alone stopped little old rugby league. So, but it was just by the end of those first two rounds, the world was changing, and it stopped becoming about just the weekend's game. It started, like, everybody wasn't sure how the world was going to react and what was going to happen in Australia. So fear often takes place of, your daily routine, and that happened.
Yep.
And then that happened sort of the first week or two of isolation, and then a bit of growth started happening in individuals and people around about, hang on, what do I really want to do? What's important to me? How do I want to live my life? All of that type of thing. And that's what we did. We gave a bit of space for the guys to think about that, reflect on that. And then they started to get the real drive to train well. So, yeah, bizarre times, but also there's some real positives that have come out of it as well.
Robbo, speaking of positives, I've heard people talking about there's been plenty of upside during COVID. And I suppose for a rugby league coach like yourself with a young family, the opportunity to spend some quality time with your kids away from football, you don't get these opportunities, for 6, 7, 8 months of the year. That must have been special. Very, very special. I've got 3 young kids. So, and with Sandra, just to hang out at home and getting your routine about at home, homeschooling, hanging out with Sandra and the kids, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved. Usually when you're taking a break, you're trying to take off somewhere on a holiday but just to spend time at home, help the kids with school, and think about your footy as well, think about your relationships, all of that was, it was a great time. And Robbo, you're a learned man and always, trying to self-improve. Was there any reading or what do you spend some time doing? I actually saw you walking around the hills of Clovelly and around the Semo a couple of times, but did you take anything up? Practice a guitar, maybe a harmonica perhaps? Not quite the harmonica, but I read a lot. So was able to sort of get into a pretty good routine daily. The usual things, the sort of the home gyms and time for the schooling, but then time for even just walking with Sandra and the kids each day, or going for a bike ride. The streets were bare, so being able to get the kids out on bikes like it was 30 years ago was good. And then, just what happens in the coaching world,
I guess people would know, you take it for granted, but a lot of coaches around the world start hooking up and sharing info.
Yeah.
So we were on different Zoom calls with people in the UK, some people in New Zealand, in Ireland, just coaches sharing information and time. It was a big time for what we call PD, sort of personal development time in coaching.
And how is Pep Guardiola going?
Yeah, Pep's good. He says to say hello to the
well, you saw the video. You saw the videos, Robbo. They're
yeah.
They're videos anyway. I don't know if they're real.
Yeah, how is Bush and Silk?
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah, they a big rugby league guy, Andy Farrell.
Yep.
So a legend who's coaching Ireland now. It was good to catch up with a guy like him a few times and chat about footy and that type of thing. But there was a lot, and so that's what we did. You would have had, we all had Zoom calls coming out of the where during that time. But there was a lot of coaching. Every second day there was some learnings there.
Robbo, on that note, it segues into a great question. What did you actually learn about yourself personally, and what did you learn about your playing group?
The personal bits were. So what happens is when you're in the middle of you're in the middle of your job, you can only look at it. What you end up looking is all you do is look at it from close up. You're in the middle of it. You look at the details. You're working day to day. But it gave you the ability. What the off season does is give you the ability to stand back and look at it from a distance, and you get a wider view of your team or club. And what it did was I was able to do that after the year, but then it also gave one a couple of rounds in to be able to do that. You're allowed to stand back, have a wider view, and then also, predict what the future may look like, what you need to adjust here or there. And that was the benefit of that. And also, I think it's exactly the same thing with your life. You constantly got a routine, day-to-day work.
Yep.
Whether it's work, family, exercise, the usual Groundhog Day that we live through. And what it allowed us to do was to step back and have a wider view of our life and the world and say, hang on, how do I want it to look?
Yeah, nice.
Robbo, another byproduct of COVID was the rule changes, and Chaffbag has a question. He wants to know how much work went into responding to the rule changes when it comes to your strategy, fitness, interchange, etc. Well,
we targeted the fitness really well during the break. As I said, we didn't over-talk. We just had a good training program. So it was great from the staff during the break, and the boys did that individually. And we let them do some of their own stuff as well. And then when we came back, the rule change was, 9 days before our first game?
Yeah,
it was.
And I think it might have been the Tuesday night they had a meeting. So Wednesday morning we walked straight back in, and as a staff and team we sat down and we went through it. We just discussed it with the leadership group. The leadership group presented it to the players. And, we knew we'd adapt well to the rule changes. But then we also had to, we all discussed it, all pros, cons, what we needed to do. And then from that day on, from the day after it got changed, we moved towards our job of trying to master that rule as well.
Robbo, your coaching style often gets referred to as very modern, very intuitive, by many reports. I guess the way we started the year in the first two games compared to how we're playing now seems a bit like chalk and cheese. And do you sort of see that reflection yourself? Is there anything you've done differently? Because it just looks like a different team.
Oh, look, there's no doubt that I would never change it. I'll always go overseas and play the World Club Challenge games and come back in a certain way. But there's some layover of that. There's definite layover of the energy demand. So we were ready to play the style of footy we're playing now after a few rounds. We just had to get some energy back from the trip, and that's what that's what we did the year before. So there's no difference in our team or ourselves. I think we use the time wisely, but we haven't changed strategy based on that. We were just getting our energy back those first couple of rounds, and we would have kicked into gear as we do.
Yeah, and that's evident. I asked this of Luke Keary last week. Does this beg the question that we need to rest our players more? Do we need to shorten rounds? Because the quality of football across the board, Roosters are certainly, shining the light there, but all teams, the quality of football the break seems to have benefited everyone. Is there an argument there, Robbo, to treat them a bit more like the racehorses that they are? They're supreme athletes, and maybe give them that rest, because you can see the difference.
Well, Keary would have said yes, without a doubt. There's no doubt he would have.
Yeah, he
world's worst tradesman, by the way.
According to Victor.
Yeah, I've reflected on some of the things about pre-seasons, how they should look. I think the length of the season is dictated by the TV rights deals and how much content we need to offer. That's how we get paid.
Yep.
No more apt than what we've just been through to understand that. But about how we can prepare. So we had 6 weeks off, no contact, and then we had 3.5 weeks of prep, but only 2.5 weeks of contact prep, and they come out and perform like they do. So you sort of do beg the question, why do we make them hit each other for 3 or 4 months straight before we get into round one?
Yep.
It does, it'll change slightly the way that I do pre-seasons.
Yeah. Robbo, did you have any fears, just as a rugby league tragic yourself? I mean, you're a coach, you're a father, you're a family man, but at the end of the day, you love this game and given a lot to it. Did you have any fears with the change of leadership, change of rules, all the things that were going on in the background from a business perspective? At one stage, we had no TV deal, and that's where we get paid. Did you have fears that you sort of had to face?
Oh, there was definite questions about, what you value and the difference between your needs and wants. I think a lot of people around the world have had to reflect on that. I really need this for my family and to live day to day, but the wants that I search for that aren't that important, what am I wasting money or time on, those sort of things? And I think that came with the possibility of income and livelihood going away. And then when it came to leadership, the leadership's been world class, in the way that the game has handled the situation, been visionary about the way to lead out before people could see it, before they could lead us towards and out of COVID, before even a lot of intelligent people around our sporting world even could see it. And Vlandis has taken very much of a lead role in all of that. Mm. And I think some of the restraints that are on some competitions, some codes, and some organisations just get broken down by the simplicity of rugby league and the thought of, come on, let's go, let's get on with it. The roll up your sleeves and move on has played right into the hands of rugby league.
Absolutely.
And that's been our strength.
Yep.
It's been our strength. And people have noticed.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, we've had people in Australia and other codes notice. People around the world have noticed.
Yeah, global. Yep.
Yeah. And it's been a real positive for rugby league.
Well, mate, speaking of all things positive, our squad, forget about 1 to 17, 1 through about 1 to 22 or 1 to 20. It looks like we've got a great rotation there at the moment, Robbo. It's a good problem to have. You've got, we had JWH missing last night. Obviously, Orbo coming back, and then we missed Teddy last week. We're looking good, aren't we?
And you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, look, I've got about 22 guys that should be playing every single week. They're regular starting first graders, so I've got to make sure that I respect them and make sure that they're playing, but then also continue to get guys to fight for their position. So, it's a credit to sort of themselves to get themselves into that position, but then also the staff to get these guys ready.
A couple of standouts, and this is one from fans, and there's been a couple of questions about this young player. I predicted he may be a chance of wearing the maroon jumper at the end of the year, but Lindsay Collins, mate, he's been unbelievable since we've returned from the break. Any words on him and his performances thus far?
Yeah, I think it's for us, it's not surprising. We've seen him develop over the last couple of years, and very unlucky not to play in some big games in the last couple of years.
Yep.
And it's the maturity of a front rower. We know the age at which they come on. We get spoilt by some guys coming on when they're 18 or 19, but around 24 is when they start to mature. And, you know, the guy has worked so hard in every area of the game to develop. So it's there's no surprising us when we see Lindsay play like he does.
Yeah. Mate, and he'll bring a new sponsorship from Colgate because he's tough as teeth.
And he's missing a couple too.
Well, that was my other point. That was subtle. Robbo, the Morris twins, I mean, if you wanted to get a description of these guys, if you had to give a one-word answer in a game show, it'd be Back to the Future.
That's 3 words, Bush.
Well, 3 words. But, mate, they are just, they just keep producing at a level that is expected of much younger Morris twins, and we've already seen it. It must be really pleasing to see that transition so fast.
Yeah, I think just the clarity on what's needed on a footy field is there. They know how to play in all different situations. They know how to act. And then my role and the staff's role is to teach them the Roosters style. And then on the back of that is to create an environment where they play the best footy they've ever played.
Yep.
It's not about trying to teach them something brand new and all of that. They just got to adapt to the Roosters style, and we create an environment that is that's going to breed their best footy that they've played.
Just on that point, obviously their old man Slippery played at the club in the 80s. I was actually the ball boy when he was running around. Did that have any influence on that? Like you talk about the Roosters style of play. You know, he was there when we were quite a successful team. Did you have a conversation with the old man?
No, I didn't speak to Slippery at all, but Brett, Josh and I have sort of spoken about the fact that Dad did play in the jersey, and just that was it's not a bad way for all three of them to have worn the jersey at some stage. They're part of on the wall now. I think he might have been Dally-M winger of the year.
He was
1985. Would that have been?
Well, no, he would have been at the Dragons. I think he came in 86, but he was part of that really successful side we had in 87 when Arthur coached, and I'm pretty sure
Canberra.
But he was definitely part of that side.
Yeah, he was winger of the year in one of those years, so he was on our wall. So,
he was also amazing. A Cleo centrefold, Robbo.
Was he?
True story. Yep.
I'll ask the boys about that.
Yeah, you'll have to. That'll be a bit of trivia for them, mate. Teddy, last night in your post-match interview, you spoke so highly of Teddy, and for obvious reasons. You know, the way he looks up, looks down, uses his feet. Last night, I've never seen a player sidestep the football and a player and then catch it and keep running. He's doing some incredible feats, and he's an amazing athlete. Can you compare Teddy to anyone else that you've seen in the past or currently?
Well, that's the good thing. We're starting to talk about Teddy. We're trying not to compare him. He's starting to become his own style of a player.
Yeah.
And that's really important. There's too many times we try, and it's easy for us to attach him to some other player. Mm-hmm. And it does that player in injustice. So Teddy was starting to see him as, his own style of a player. The percussions are on at the moment. And that's the beauty of Teddy is, so there's two parts to a player. They've got to have a really strong foundation of skills in attack and defence, and then they've got to have the freedom to bring their own personality out on top of that. And I think you can see that in bucket loads with Teddy. He ticks all the boxes that a traditional fullback should tick. Whether it's bringing the ball back out of the backfield, whether it's support play around the ruck, whether it's direction on sweeping lines out the back of shape in good ball, whether it's defensive organisation at the end of organising the whole defensive line, cover tackles, try saves. So that's 101 in being a fullback.
Yep.
And then on top of that, he's got his own style, the footwork, the class, the one-hand pass, just the flick or a kick or different things. And it's to mesh those two together, then you start getting talked about in your own terms.
Mm.
Now, Robbo, our halves pairing, and I'd throw Victor Radley into the mix. He's playing, seems like a second 5'8", but more importantly, in particular the last 2 weeks, Kyle Flanagan, mate, he's been exceptional in and around the ruck. We've actually got a question all the way from Holland, and it's actually a good question. What initially made Flano the right option to replace Cooper?
And that's from Dills.
Dills in Holland, mate.
Dills. So we wanted to develop players in our system, so that was key to get them young and develop through. We had dominant players in Tedesco and Keary in the halves in those roles, so we didn't want someone to override them. We wanted someone to assist them. So we wanted a player that was good at organising, good at good skill set, and could do a really good job at kicking the ball into the right areas as well. And that would develop with them and complement them. And so we've been, it's been a really good start. It's been, he's worked really hard at it. And, that's why we're seeing the style of play that we are at the moment.
And where have you seen the biggest improvements in his game from when he arrived at the club to now, Robbo?
I think 2 areas. I think the low tackle that he had to put on for Tilly Mariner a few times.
Yep.
I feel like his defence has improved each week, and he's working really hard on it. And I think his kicks are getting into better positions over the last 2 weeks, especially.
Robbo, one more player the players we haven't mentioned, and some of them listen to this podcast. That's because we have an expectation they play the Roosters style of footy. So no disrespect to the non-mentioned. But one more for mention, and he's been playing out of his skin, Angus Crichton. Interviewed last night, said, it took me a couple of years to get used to Rooster style of footy. And does that make you proud to understand that players get it? They know it's different. They feel it, and now the results are there.
Yeah, it's hard when a guy comes across like Angus and, he's such a good player already, but you're sort of there. It's hard to see the subtle differences, and that's why it's hard for people to commentate on or do that. And then for Gus to work as hard as what he has, and that's why he's put himself in such a great position at the moment. So, I think you can see by the way that they're talking, and even much as I'm proud of Lindsay or Kyle or Teddy or whatever, we don't feel like we're in this purple patch.
Yep.
We just feel like we're playing footy. There's not this euphoria. It's about, we expect to play this way if we do our job well. And I think that's what guys like Angus and all of that, guys aren't playing out of their skin. They're playing the style of footy that we want to play. So therefore it's repeatable often. And that's really key. We're not getting carried away. We're not, jumping for joy after games, or we're really content, and we're analysing. Like, so today we sat down and said, rightio, what do we like? Okay, what are the things we need to improve on for next week? And that's how we feel about it.
Yep.
Hey, Robbo, do you get dirty in the box like when you see a small error like that? I mean, there's a couple of notable errors last night in that 20 minutes where you talked about in the press conference. Do you blow up? Do you let off steam in the box?
Yeah. I sort of go because you want the guys to turn it around. Like it's never everlasting, but you're sort of there going, come on, you like everybody, come on. We've had 2 of those in a row. We should do better on this one. Like we can't keep it happening, or there's stuff that you commentate in the box.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean you send out a message that's reflecting your emotion. Sometimes it's your emotion, and you should just keep it to yourself in the box and not pass it down to the bench or the players. So it's key to work out what do you pass on and what's just you expressing your emotion that no one else needs to hear.
And obviously there was a little bit of a hiccup with the timing of the match due to what happened with the COVID breakout at the school. But did that kind of unsettle, or does it change the way you approach Monday night, and then look forward to probably Saturday night? Yeah,
it made no difference at all, to be honest, none.
Not even with the 5-day turnaround, Robbo, that extra day of rest for the physicality?
No. Because it doesn't, just, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yep.
So, there's, if we had to play on Friday, we'd play on Friday. If we can't do anything about it, then just get ready.
So, begs the question, it was such an enjoyable weekend because footy was on from Friday to Monday. We topped it off with our beloved Roosters. Does it beg the question that Monday footy's back, baby, by order of Trent Robinson? Because there's only one more man important than you. That's Nick Politis, and one more important than him, Peter V'landys. I reckon we can get this done.
I don't know. But Monday night footy ended up becoming a long weekend of footy for the footy guys.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You guys might have enjoyed it, but it ended up going forever.
Yeah, that's what the fans. That's funny from the outside looking in. It's perfect. From the inside out, it's probably a bit long, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that was how we felt about it, but still very enjoyable to play on a Monday night. As soon as we got it moved, we went into team video and we made a bit of we got an NFL Monday night footy promo out and played it to them just to a couple of minutes of Monday night footy's back to add a bit of fun to it. So.
Yep.
Now, Robbo, Saturday night we take on the top of the table Eels. It will be a mouth-watering match just off the back of your comments just earlier. Where do we need to improve?
Oh, we're not where we want to be by the end of the year. So, it doesn't matter who we're playing this weekend. We would, there was some things. We had a try on the left edge that we want to improve on, some of the things that led to that. Movements were better this week than last week, but there was a couple of areas there where we think we could have adapted a bit quicker to what they were doing. There's a bit about consistency around our sort of movements throughout the whole game. So yeah, there's lots of areas. It's an unfinished masterpiece. That's what you're going to keep painting over it and over and over it. To try and make it better, and that's there's no difference on Saturday.
Now, Robbo, before we go to our final two fun questions from some people you know well, as the Roosters coach, we saw the impact of COVID and TV deals and everything else. Our club needs support. Have you got a message for the fans? Joe Kelly come on board and put a great message to support our club, support our players, get back to the league club, and use our facilities. What's the message from our coach?
Yeah, we represent you. We're here because you want to sign up as a member, you want to turn up to our clubs, you want to turn up to the games, you want to buy our merchandise, and you want to feel a part of what we feel. You want a part of Boyd Cordner in the ticket that you buy or the jersey that you put on. And that hasn't changed. We may not see you at the ground anymore, but we do feel you by your presence in all those other areas. So, still be a Rooster. It's still a really important time. We feel you. We know it's tough for some, but we feel like we're doing you guys proud, and we feel your support. So support the club in as many ways as possible.
Great words there, Robbo. Last question from me, Robbo. Now, this comes from an old Balmain man that knows you from a long time ago, who rated you as a cricketer. And he asked the question, if you would have stuck with cricket, do you think you could have paired with Brett Lee as opening bowler for Australia?
Who asked it?
The great Keithy Perkins.
Keith, we would have played the Green Shield game with Brett at Petersham Oval, I would say, against Keith's son Troy.
Yeah.
Brett was a lot sharper than I was and a lot more dangerous. But I love the cricket, really loved it. It's just, it was sort of my main sport as a kid. And you never know where you sort of would have got to. But I wish it was one of those sports, where you have to choose. You had to choose. It wasn't like you could keep playing. I went and played for East for a year.
Yeah.
It was amazing to watch a guy like Brett Lee and the difference, the separation between him and us. And then there was no doubt that he was sort of headed for something special. He was quite unique in the absolute sharpness and fear he used to put into opposition batsmen.
I've got this great vision, just as you tell that story, Robbo, of a young Trent Robinson, St. Greg's, bit of a Westie at heart.
A mullet.
Got the mullet with the gold chains, got the grey Nichols whites on, the red stain down
like a St. Greg's Tiger King.
Just coming in full steam from the Parramatta Road end there at Petersham Oval.
Gold chain bouncing on the chin.
No gold chain and undercut, but everything else was the same.
Yeah, nice. Robbo, finally from Brett Gillard. Last night post-game, he said, your plumber, of course, Mighty Paddington Colt strength and conditioning coach, said to me that the shirt you're wearing didn't do justice to the training he knows you do, and he wants to know if you have been doing all your push-ups that you are expected to do during the COVID period.
I've been doing my best. It's been hard. I was much freer during ISO than I am at the moment in this bubble of Roosters. Can't go out you're not allowed to go out for a walk on your own at the moment.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
So I'll get back onto them or choose a better shirt, one or the other.
Well, the Mighty Gillies just turned 50, mate, and there's not a fitter bloke at 50, as we both know, but he was just a bit worried. I said, I'll speak to the coach and I'll make sure he's back on track. It's great to hear you back on track.
I'll get back into it, Gilly. Good
on you, mate. Robbo, we want to thank you, mate. On behalf of the fans, behalf of Roosters Radio, we're, so pleased that we've got such an accessible coach. We've got such a calm coach. And, mate, long live your success. You really are leaving a legacy here, I think, as business owners, shop owners, locals, fans, blue-collar workers, crane drivers, bus drivers, the common man. You're really galvanising our community. And collectively, just want to thank you for the great job you're doing, because it's a great time to be a Rooster.
Yeah, enjoying it. Proud to be coaching them, and long way to go.
East to win, Robbo.
East to win. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, mate.
Coach. Well, Roosters fans, each week on Roosters Radio, we like to be different. Tonight, we're taking a trip down memory lane with fellow Roosters tragic and current CEO of ACFS Port Logistics, Arthur Zaneros. Arthur is a long-term sponsor of the club and currently our dynamic fullback James Tedesco sponsor. Artie, how are you, mate?
Not too bad. Great to be on the show.
Yeah, mate, great to have you on. Now, mate, we had a great chat, Silky and I, to you about, having an initiative of talking to people about their favourite Rooster memories and what made them a Rooster. And here we are live having this discussion now. Mate, let's kick it off. Tell us about your love of the Roosters.
Yeah, look, I probably got a little bit of a secret that not many people know about, and that is I probably wasn't born a Rooster. I probably wavered between Parramatta and the Roosters up until 1986. And that year, funny enough, Para won the comp. They had an amazing team throughout the 80s, and I was wavering between the two. Probably became a strong and loyal Rooster supporter in 87 when I was about 9 years old.
Yep.
And that was due to probably going down to Henson Park, the old Henson Park before.
How good was that?
The Sydney Football Stadium, and that's where my love of the game really grew, and I became a real Rooster supporter, as they say. Probably the favourite moment in that year was a semi-final against Canberra, I think it was from memory, which I think we'd lost that game. It was a tight one, but we lost. And I had a massive red, white and blue flag made by my grandmother. That was far bigger than I ever was at that age. And I hit a Canberra fan in the head unintentionally. And that started all emotions spilt over in the stands. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew at that point that I was a Rooster for life, and I loved it.
Artie, were you a Rooster booster, or hanging around with Matt O'Brien if you got the flags and all the regalia? You were hanging over that side of Henson Park? Because I've got to say, mate, I was the ball boy in 87, and it was such a great community ground to play in front of.
Yeah, mate, it was. Look, hanging around, what's probably known as the Chook Pen today, hanging around that crowd was always my favourite growing up. So there's a few mad ones amongst that group, but that's what it's all about.
Artie, would you love to see a game, albeit a trial or even a nines match? Would you like to see that, just for nostalgia perspective, go back and play a game at Henson?
Mate, I'd love to see it. I think that's genuine rugby league, and to some extent, I love seeing some games down at Leichhardt and, those older stadiums, whilst they don't have the facilities, it just brings the people closer and brings back, the real rugby league.
Mate, Silky being from a very entrepreneurial family, mate used to acquire some corner posts in his time and made a fortune selling them at school, but sometimes people got there before him. You ever get a corner post, the black and white corner post?
Mate, I did. I used to hit people with it too.
Now, fast forward, Artie, you've got a very successful business, ACFS. It's a transport and logistics company. But most importantly, you've been supporting the Roosters for a number of years. In fact, you were on the back of the jumper when we won the premiership in 2013, and even up until now, you're Teddy's sponsor. But tell us a bit the story of how ACFS got involved with the Roosters.
Yeah, look, it probably goes back a little bit further than that. Our family sort of had a long association with the Roosters through a previous company called AGS World Transport. They started out sponsoring Ricky Stewart back in the day, back in the early 2000s. I think it was 2002, 2003, somewhere thereabouts. And they actually became a jumper sponsor in 2008 till 2011. And then I think ACFS took over in 2012, and we won that competition in 2013, which was obviously a highlight.
Artie, your all-time favourite Rooster?
Look, I've probably got two standouts, so I wouldn't say I've got one. Freddie Fittler definitely is right up there. Also the Count, Anthony Minicello. So probably they're my two standouts. But I've also been asked most recently, who's your favourite player? And I've actually spoken about someone that's not a player, and that's Robbo, our coach, our great coach, who I think is a standout as well.
You get no arguments from us.
No, none at all, mate. We've actually got a photo of Robbo up in the studio here, and Silky sort of looks at it in religious connotation, so it's pretty good, mate.
It's not as good as our nude of Boyd Cordner, but
no
anyway. Artie, I want to talk about your player sponsor, James Tedesco, and in particular his performance last night. Couple of tries, 12 line breaks, set up a couple. What a performance.
Yeah, look, I probably personally rate him as the best player in the world at the moment, and I sort of have had a very high opinion of Teddy as a player and a person for a long time. I guess the history with my involvement with Teddy, I had a personal view, and I'd sort of share it with anyone that had listened, that Teddy was probably the most important signing since Brad Fittler with the Roosters in my generation. And when I was tipped off that Teddy was coming, or was in the sights of the club, I did speak to Luke Griffithson, being a board member, and said, look, if there's any way that I could assist in getting into the club in a sponsorship manner, it'd be great to do so. And that's how the association started. But look, Teddy's he's already won 2 comps since he's arrived at the club and seen success straight away. And I just think he's such an integral part of the team at the moment.
Yeah, he certainly is, Artie, and I've got to tell you, last night's performance, I mean, Teddy was an absolute standout, but as a fellow Rooster, you must be just so proud. I mean, you've seen blokes like Lindsay Collins, the Morris twins, Flano at half is just in real control. Keary's at his, artful dodger, like magician best. I mean, it just keeps going on. It's a great time to be a Rooster.
Yeah, absolutely. I genuinely believe we're building quite nicely. Robbo talks about building blocks and things like that, but we're building quite nicely into this season. Bit of a rocky start, but I think we're on our way for a Roosters three-peat.
That was my next question, Artie. With the performance we've seen over the last 3 weeks, in the vein of the Chicago Bulls, we've all been watching the Netflix documentary, The Last Dance. Can you see a Roosters trilogy on the cards?
I don't see any reasons why not. Unless the injury starts to get a lot of our players. There's so much depth in this team, and they're playing such a good style of football since the break. So, look, I don't see any reason why the Roosters can't do it and potentially, celebrate another end-of-season celebration or World Cup challenge.
Artie, we talk about benchmarking. We know you've had some great success in business. We know that, you're running a great ship over at the ACFS. You're a big fan of Robbo's, as are we. And we talk to a lot of fellow, fans who have their own businesses and stuff, say, I base myself a bit on Trent Robinson. We know we're not playing footy games, but we have got teams. The analogy of sport and business really collide well. Do you benchmark yourself against Robbo, or happen to know you're a fan of the Roosters board? And one day you'll probably be on there, but hopefully you got our vote anyway. Do you benchmark?
Look, absolutely. Just from a benchmarking perspective, we measure everything we do in business every day. And, you have to give individuals targets. You have to give teams some targets. So they can either achieve and or exceed the expectations of the business. We've got 1,200 people in our workforce, so it's really important that our communication's clear, consistent, transparent. And, I guess our business is built on people and not one individual. So, look, it's not dissimilar to the way the Roosters are run as a club, from the board down through the front office there with Joe Kelly, Jared Johnson, and down to the coach and the team. So, it takes a collective effort. And, we do benchmark with everything that we do.
And what about our divine leader, Mr. Nick Politis? Have you got ambitions maybe of maybe taking that seat one day that is held in that boardroom?
Look, it's I definitely have ambitions to join the board. It'd be a privilege and a responsibility that I wouldn't take lightly. Nick and the board have built an enviable football club, an organisation, probably more than a football club. So it's important to the success of the Roosters from that people continue that success ongoing.
Artie, it must be said, the head of the NRL, Peter Vlandis, is a Greek. The head of the Sydney Roosters, chairman Nick Politis, is a Greek. And, mate, the head of our sponsorship crew, yourself, is Arthur Zaneros, a fellow Greek. It's all Greek to us. Is there a pattern there that we need to know about?
Look, it seems like a fairly strong pattern, and let's hope it continues, that the Greeks are able to lead the way in the NRL at all levels.
Absolutely. Artie, really appreciate your time here on Roosters Radio. Last chance, mate, for a plug, ACFS Transport and Logistics.
Look, we're the leaders in our industry in joining the Roosters in leading the way in the competition. East to win. East to win.
And I can vouch for ACFS Transport as a former wharfie down there at Port Botany. I used to get driven mad by the number of trucks. So they deliver door to door. And, if you'd ever need some transport logistics, contact ACFS. Artie, thanks again for joining us on Roosters Radio.
Thanks again, gents. See you soon.
See you, mate.
Thanks, Artie.
Welcome back to Roosters Radio. And Bush, I've got to say, thoroughly enjoying tonight's show. I think that chat that we've had with Trent Robinson, look, it's a deep dive. It was a long interview, and I'll have to say, even catching up with Artie Zaneros there, talking about his beloved time at Henson Park. I've got some fond memories too there, mate.
Yeah, mate. Trip down memory lane is so good. Doesn't matter which Roosters fan we talk to. I just love hearing everyone's different memories because you kind of relate, or you're there at that game, or you remember being at that.
What's your first Rooster memory?
My first Roosters memory is the Sydney Sports Ground.
Yep.
Kevin Hastings was playing, and I was always fascinated with Captain Rooster. I was only young. I was about
Brian.
7 or 8. Brian. And I know Brian at the moment's having a bit of a difficult time. So Roosters fans out there, he's got a GoFundMe page, which we'd love you to support because he's synonymous with our club. And I used to love how he would, on that, what would you call it, the south...
Yeah, the southwestern corner.
Northwest. Sorry, the northwestern corner it would be. He would just be in that stand with a whole... gallery of people, and he was just going crazy. And I used to look.
Well, they were Rooster boosters back then.
They were, mate. And that was the memories of that.
What about as kids playing during the half time? Do you remember playing the games during the before and the half time?
What about playing our grand finals at that sports ground? And Kevin Hastings gives you your medals afterwards, whether you won or whatever.
I can tell you one of the earliest memories I have was. It would have been probably 83, 84. Laurie Fryer was the actual coach.
Yep.
And my dad took me to the dressing room. And I remember meeting Brian Johnston, blonde-headed centre, if you remember him. But that's probably one of the earliest memories of, not playing there or being at the ground, but actual Rooster memory is meeting him.
And in the dressing room, my grandfather used to take me in too. And in the dressing room, he had Bunny Riley on the wall and a few different, different posters of the Roosters. Remember the guy that you ran through and plenty of times?
That's what I was going to say. One of my earliest memories is just watching the players run through the butcher's paper.
That's it, the butcher's paper. That was amazing. That was one of my favourite memories. Lots to like, Silky. This week, Parramatta Eels, we're going to bring the show home. You're going out there to the game with the family?
Yeah, mate, can't wait. Lucky enough to get some tickets as a member. So I'm taking the family out to Parramatta, and my two daughters are absolutely ecstatic to be able to watch all their favourite players, Teddy. So hopefully Teddy can repeat his performance from Monday night and, have a similar game this Saturday night.
I tell you what, it's going to be a cracking game of football. But, Silky, we've had two amazing guests on tonight. It's been a fantastic show. It's been a really enjoyable show. I think we've got some great insights from both our coach, Trent Robinson. And
the fans, Bush.
And the fans, some great questions to keep them coming. And want to thank Arthur Zaneros too for, his great interview and taking us down memory lane about his favourite times as a Rooster as a kid. I love the story about the flag into the Canberra fan and then it erupts. And, many more to come.
Righto, mate. Put you on the spot. Saturday night, 7:30 kickoff or thereabouts. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think we're going to be a bit tight. I think Parramatta have had a chance to watch some videos over the last couple of weeks. but I don't think they're going to be able to stop it. So I'm calling Roosters 26, Parramatta 12.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's going to be a bit tighter than usual. I still think there's going to be points scored. And with that, I'm going Roosters 18, Parramatta 14.
Wow. Very close one.
That's it for this episode of Roosters Radio. Once again, we'd like to thank our very special guest, the one and only Coach Trent Robinson, and of course, Artie Zaneros from ACFS Port Logistics. You've been listening to Roosters Radio. Now, before we go, Bush, you got something to say?
From ball boy to boardroom, east to win.
They'll show you how to play. Here come the Roosters, the best we've ever seen. The red, white and Roosters, the east and southern team. East to west, out up with pride, let everybody know. If you play this football game, beware the Roosters grow. They're great to see in action, these boys will show the way. Put the Roosters on the field, they'll show you how to play. Here come the Roosters, the best we've ever seen. The red, white and Roosters, the Eastern